I will start us off with some information and then pass it over to our presenters for the day. And the first piece is some introductions and some housekeeping. So my name is Catherine. Welcome to our Building Community session, which is another one of these Proline Academy sessions in our series for Strata residents and also council members. I'm the Director of Culture and Community here at Proline Management, and we're also going to be joined by Christy Tamburi and Dario Anselmo. They're both strata managers here at Proline. Christy's also one of our managing brokers and one of the managers of the strata department. And Dario is one of our supervisors and a trainer of the new property managers that join us. We're really excited to get into this topic, and it's an enjoyable one to talk about. So I think we're all excited to dive in. Here at Proline, we are also constantly building community and building our internal culture so that we can show up for each other and the communities that we serve each day. So which is why we include a photo from one of our our team sessions, annual team sessions, where we get together and build that community together each year. Another few things before we jump into the content, housekeeping in terms of the webinar format. It is being recorded, today's session, so I will be emailing a link out to everyone who has signed up for it. Even if you aren't able to attend, or if you're not able to attend throughout the whole time, you will get a link to that recording. Also, because it's a webinar, no one can see or hear the attendees. The only people that are on screen and that can be heard are Christy, Dario, and I, so don't worry. You can be in your pajamas. If you do need to talk to me, you can reach out in the chat and I can respond to you directly through that. Well, I'll touch on that. Questions go in a different spot. I'll touch on that in a second. In terms of the communities represented, we have all different types of communities, people from different communities attending. So we have managed buildings all over Vancouver Island. There are townhouses, there are high rises, small buildings, large buildings. And not every piece of information will be applicable to every building because that would be impossible, but we've tried to share information that can be adjusted and applied to all of your situations. So think of it through that lens. In terms of timing, we're scheduled to be here for an hour, including questions. In general, we're open up for questions at the end of the session, but if you have a question that pops into your head, don't try to store it up there. And for an hour, I lose those if I try to keep them too long. Put them in the chat and we can address it when it comes up or, excuse me, or at the end of the session. And please use that chat function, or sorry, the Q&A function for your questions. That means that everybody else can see those questions as well. And then we don't need to ask the same questions over and over, and then we can read through them on one format and just be more cohesive in how we address them. And one last thing, you see the surprise prize. We'd like to thank you for taking the time out of your day and to show up for your communities and to care about building that sense of community with your neighbors. So at the end of the session, we're going to give away one $75 gift certificate to a local business. So you do have to be in the room, as it were, to win. And we will announce whoever the winner is at the end of the session. And that local business will really depend on you. No point in giving you something for camping goods if you all want to stay home and read books all the time. So we will connect after the session and find out what works for you. And then moving along, just a quick intro on our Proline Academy. I'm not going to dig into this a lot, but I do want to let you know that if this is your first time, we do offer a number of different opportunities for learning, as I mentioned, both for our Strata Council members and for residents and owners in our Strata communities. These sessions are opportunities for people to hear from either external experts or internal experts about things that impact your buildings or communities. If you have attended in the past, are always looking for new ideas. If this is your first time, if you have any questions or suggestions regarding these educational offerings, please feel free to reach out to me directly. You all have my email because that's the person And I have the email and all of the emails that you've been receiving about this. So always happy to get new ideas. And now I'm going to hand it over to Christy and Dario to dig into today's topic.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Catherine, and welcome everybody. Today's session is on building community, and we are delving into this topic to hopefully help provide community members with tools to create goodwill and community, add value to your communities, share some specific examples and success stories that we have seen. And so this particular session is definitely less technical and more human based, which is kind of a bit fun for us. So moving on, you might be asking yourself, but why is Proline talking about building communities? You guys are our strata manager. And really, we make these presentations, and particularly this topic because, and Catherine kind of touched on this, it really does fit with our purpose and our paradigms, particularly with our purpose of helping people live and grow together. And whatever else, uh, whatever a strata community is, they are people's homes, whatever shape or form that comes in, whether you're in a condo building, a townhouse, or even a bare land strata, you and your neighbors make up kind of a little micro community. And so that really resonates obviously with us, given our purpose. And by supporting you, not only as community members, but as strata council members, the people who ultimately are creating those positive connections within your communities, we believe that we're acting in service to our purpose as well. So, in saying that, as I kind of touched on, generally strata communities are ultimately like little mini towns. They're micro communities of our kind of larger general community, and they allow for unique opportunities to engage people. Communication and connection is so critical, particularly now post COVID. We've all gone through some pretty tough, isolating times. And so by increasing connectedness, people are generally happier and able to live healthier lives. And this is proven by research. So I will delve into that a little bit more in a second, but ultimately we want to also recognize who the players are. Who is it in your community and how does each member play a role? As I mentioned, we're looking at your little micro strata communities. And everyone does play a role to essentially reinforce that sense of community, whether it's the strata council who's considering and making decisions. We feel that management strata managers are part of your community. We're providing advice and helping to implement strategies and decisions that the strata council makes. Owners and residents, of course, are kind of the meat and potatoes of your community. They're the people that live in it, participate, and engage. And then, of course, we all live in this beautiful place, Vancouver Island, whether you're in Victoria, Parksville, Campbell River. There's a broader community, and that brings context and opportunity as well. But what are the rules? We want to build communities in our little community, our little micro communities, our strata corporations. But stratas are governed and legislated based on very specific rules. And so the Strata Council ultimately has the ultimate authority when it comes to strata kind of sanctioned activities. Though, having said that, most social activities in our experience are typically endorsed by a council of a strata corporation, and funding also typically or can flow from the corporation itself. And Dario is going to dive into kind of more of the money flow a little bit later in the session. But ultimately, I think what it all boils down to at the end is the most important rule, if we can call it that, in building these communities or helping to foster and enforce those communities really is communication. It all comes down to communication. Communication is absolutely key. So, as I noted, there are lots of benefits to building, reinforcing, and then maintaining a really solid community. Um, a resource that we will provide later in the session at towards the end is called Hey Neighbor, and it has a variety of resources, tools, and a bunch of research that really helps to kind of um, frame the benefits of community, but essentially engagement and connection are important. Pride of ownership, improved security, smoother operations of your strata, development of meaningful relationships, and obviously we want to have some fun too, right? This is where you live. We want everyone to be involved in the community and have the opportunity to enjoy where you live. I'm gonna dive into a little bit of some of the research that Hey Neighbor has actually put out because it's really fascinating. Strong social relationships make us happier, healthier, and more resilient in the face of crisis, sorry, and are linked with living 15 years longer on average. I just want to repeat that. Strong social relationships make us happier, healthier, and more resilient in the face of crisis and are linked with living 15 years longer on average. That's pretty speaks for itself, I think. But loneliness and isolation are on the rise, particularly post-COVID. We've definitely seen that across the board in the stratas that we're involved in on Vancouver Island. As it was stated in Hey Neighbors research in 2023, reported by the US Surgeon General, um, the isolation and loneliness levels are reaching epidemic levels. In 2021, the Canadian, so a little bit more local to home, Canadian Social Survey found that 3 in 10 people across Canada feel lonely sometimes, and 1 in 10 feel lonely often, with loneliness being greatest among young women and single people. So I don't know what each and every one of your strata communities look like, but there's certainly I would gather a large percentage of either A, young people who are just entering the housing market, and then also single people who have lived long lives and have joined in to live in a strata community to have people around them. So I think it's really particularly important in strata corporations to kind of take that into account. Going on from there, more than 1 in 4 people in Canada will be 65 or older by 2068. So just over 40 years from now. And I think that we can all look in our strata communities and see, and the greater community as well, that our population is generally aging. And surveys have repeatedly found that older adults want to stay in their homes for as long as possible. About 1 in 10 Canadians aged 65 and older report feeling socially isolated, and 1 in 4 report low social participation, according to a 2022 report from the National Institute on Aging. So, in saying all of that, connection and community are incredibly important to us as human beings. Again, I'm going to go back up to my first statement. Strong social relationships make us happier, healthier, and more resilient, and are linked to living 15 years longer on average. That's a pretty astounding statistic. Huh, so that's a hard-hitting stat for Dario to follow up on, but I'm gonna pass it on to Dario to actually get us into how do you start building community in your micro community, your strata corporation?
Great. Yeah, so how do we get started? So first I'm going to give some tips for looking around your community to find what resources you have available to you. Then Christy is going to give some specific examples of things that other stratas have done or things you can do in your community. And then it'll be back to me to discuss some of the practical considerations involved in setting these things up. So let's start with the most basic thing, which is know your buildings. When it comes to planning events, some stratas have an obvious community space. You might have an amenity room or a gym or a guest suite that can be blocked off for a social event. But even if you don't have that, it doesn't mean you don't have the space to build community. We're going to be talking specifics later on, but you can make use of your lobby, a patch of grass outside the building, maybe something even off the strata's property to host get-togethers. And not all community building is about large gatherings. Again, specifics later, but community building can involve more passive events, like having everyone decorate their front doors and patios, having a shared library somewhere on the property, take a book, leave a book, and even one-on-one activities between you and another neighbor can be a community building social event, the most obvious of which is a welcome committee for new residents. Proline provides all new owners with a welcome package that goes into the basics of strata living, but not necessarily the specifics of your community. So it can be very helpful to have someone from your community prepare a quick rundown of all the quirks of your building, where the garbage rooms are, where bikes are allowed to be kept, stuff like that. Do a little tour with new residents. But what I'm actually talking about right now is refamiliarizing yourself with your strata and starting to think creatively about what parts of your buildings can be used to help you build community. And since we're talking about community, remember that you're also part of a community beyond the boundaries of your strata. You might not have a community space in your strata, maybe you do, but maybe there's also a local community space, like a community center that can be rented out, a public park in your neighborhood that can be used. Maybe you have weekly meetups at a coffee shop. Again, community building doesn't have to be all or nothing. It's easy to think of a big party that everyone in the strata is invited to, with food and drinking, but it doesn't have to be an event that literally every owner can attend or something big and flashy. A weekly walking group, a small book club of 3 or 4 owners, shopping trips, group volunteer opportunities, anything that gets you out socializing together with some of your neighbors will help build a community in your strata. And if you're eyeing the big flashy events, sometimes those smaller little things can help you build up to that and build the foundations towards getting to a bigger event. Now, of course, you can't build community without communicating. Nobody's going to meet you at the coffee shop if they didn't know that you were going to be there. So the most obvious form of communication is for the strata to have somewhere that they can post their own notices, like a bulletin board or a cork board somewhere. Often these notices are posted via the council or a caretaker, which just allows some control over the notice board, ensure everything posted there is appropriate, not just spam, nothing hateful, and that notices are taken down in a timely manner to allow space for new ones. Similarly, council can approve notices to be emailed out via the Strata's website if you have one. So you can just send notices that you want posted to council and get their approval to have them posted for you. Often standing plans are great. For example, something that takes place every second Tuesday at 6 p.m. is really easy for people to plan around and to build momentum every time, getting the same people back, maybe getting 1 or 2 new people each time. If you're having different events in different places at different times, that can discourage people from participating long-term because it's a constant struggle to be scheduling and rescheduling. Standing plans are really good to get the word out for, oh, you missed it this time, don't worry, it's happening again, same place, same time. Some stratas also have a newsletter that goes out to all residents detailing events and information about the building. These can be put together by an owner or a committee of owners or residents. I've seen some really great ones at stratas I've worked with, just random news, any little thing, fun, things people have put on their patio, fun events. I'm on a newsletter committee within Proline. Last month, we did a silly little personality quiz, like something you would see in a magazine that you pick up at a grocery store checkout counter. It was just nonsensical, but it got people talking to each other to compare what results they got. Just a little bit of extra socializing and community building there. And you can also communicate directly via your Strata Council in the meeting minutes. If you're part of a Block Watcher community preparedness group, you could be feeding information to council, which council can then be including in the minutes. And of course, the annual general meetings, where everyone's together, are a great time for you to champion all the Strata social events. The Strata Council sets the agenda for the AGM, and so council can absolutely make time at the end of the meeting, after council elections, right before we adjourn, to give space to announce upcoming events, ongoing meetups, the big successes throughout the year, looking back at what the best social events were throughout the year. All that kind of stuff can be done at the AGM. But again, throughout the year, using any of these methods. So what specifically, though, can you be doing? I'll turn it back to Christy for some concrete examples.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So we're going to look at some specific examples of how successful community building has been developed in some of the Proline managed strata corporations. So it's a little chance for us to toot the horns of some of our clients and what amazing community building they have put in place. So the first is a strata corporation in Victoria. They typically put on 3 to 4 social events annually. This one in particular with these photos, I thought was a great example because while they have a fantastic outdoor space with a courtyard and beautiful lawn, they use that in the summertime for their courtyard party with typically meal that's barbecued and residents that attend and bring potluck dishes that complement one another. And there's always treats, of course. But this particular event that we've chosen to focus on here is their Oktoberfest party. And October is not necessarily the warmest month of the year. And so these guys decided to start holding their Oktoberfest party in the parkade. And it has been a great success. And so it's just a reminder that you don't have to have the beautiful manicured lawn or the outdoor, gazebo to hold these kinds of events. You can be creative with the spaces that you do actually have to put on really worthwhile engagements that bring people together. A little bit different, some pictures of some garbage cans. This is an example of another strata corporation that we manage in Victoria that has a group of volunteers that manage the garbage room. They ensure that the refundables are all properly organized, clean, that the room is tidy and inviting so that residents actually go in and properly put their recycling in each of the appropriate bins. And so that when residents get rid of their refundables, that the strata corporation can essentially recoup some of those funds, and then those funds go into a special account where the social committee can utilize the money to plan social events across the year. So a really great example of how you might build the funds in order to throw some great parties if you're looking for the glitz and glamour and the big showstopper events. Next is another strata corporation that we manage, this time in Nanaimo. And this strata corporation puts on a gorgeous Christmas display every year. And so many of the residents, I can't say all, but so many, most of them decorate, put lights up. They have a very beautiful lobby that is glass from front to back. And on every level, they put a Christmas tree and they decorate the tree and they light the tree. And it is just an incredible sight to see at Christmas time. Everyone comes together and it's a really great opportunity for individuals in the community, in the strata corporation, to socialize, to enjoy the season, and participate. And one year they actually got recognized by Check Six, our local news guys, as one of the most festive displays in Nanaimo. So a big shout out to the Gabriola there. And then I'd also like to celebrate another strata in Victoria, in View Royal, actually, because they were identified as the first strata in the Greater Victoria region to become a fire smart recognized neighborhood. And that participation and that level of organization could not have been possible without volunteers and a sense of the community that has been fostered at this particular townhouse complex. And for anyone that doesn't know, the Fire Smart Neighborhood Recognition Program is a national initiative designed to bring neighbors together to take practical science-based action to reduce the impact of wildfires. So no doubt this accomplishment could only be achieved with volunteers within this community. And so it's a pairing of a beautiful opportunity for residents to come together and engage and probably socialize and have some fun, but also to bring a really important concept and steps to a community that is in the forest and needs to be, thinking about safety and fire prevention. So I just want to mention too that it's really important when you're putting in place steps to implement a new program, such as the Fire Smart program or even an emergency preparedness program, to make sure that the scale is something that can be taken on by future residents, future owners, future strata councils. Um, there are times when we can see someone that's very passionate about a particular project jump in with both feet, purchase equipment, purchase assets for the Strata Corporation, and then as life has it, life changes, that person moves out of the community, and there's not really a succession plan to take the program from there. So if you're looking to implement a program such as this, it's always important to just remember how it can be continued for years to come. And then next is just a really fantastic example of volunteerism across the board. We provide strata management services to a community in Parksville called Craig Bay. They have over 400 homes with an expansive property, as you can see, that requires a ton of maintenance and work. Each of the roads, all of the infrastructure within Craig Bay is the responsibility of the strata corporations collectively. There are 5 of them. And then if you look in the bottom right-hand corner of the photo, you can see there's a tennis court and an outdoor pool. Tucked behind that is a beautiful beach club, which is kind of the gem of the community. That is all run almost entirely by volunteers. This community could not and would not operate if it wasn't for the incredible level of volunteerism from the residents in the community. Most residents, I would hazard a guess, have at some point volunteered in some way to ensure that Craig Bay is not only governed well and maintained well, but that also it's a fabulous, friendly, and fun place to live. They have all kinds of social committees and social groups that get together for singing, dancing, scotch drinking. There's groups that play pool together, play cards together, but there's also really important initiatives like bottle drives to support the community. They do fundraising, they do food drives, food drives for local food banks. There's so much I could go on forever about this community. They really are a fantastic example of exactly what building community within a strata corporation can look like. And then to touch just briefly on social committees. Social committees are often kind of a beginning or can be a first step to kind of starting to build that community. Many stratas rely on the residents to build that social committee to take the load off the volunteers that are already doing the hard lifting of governing the strata corporation. And it's nice to see the sharing of responsibilities across different committees. Because as I said, that can lighten the load for the Strata Council, but it can also introduce new ideas and individuals who are excited to build those connections. You might have a treasurer, for example, on the Strata Council that is super into numbers and spreadsheets, but not keen on scheduling or planning for, a dog walk. And so that treasurer is incredibly valuable on your Strata Council, but the social committee or the individual that wants to prepare and plan those social events is just as important. And this may also serve as a great opportunity to get owners involved and might even result in some new council members in your strata corporation. So I know most stratas can always use a little bit of new blood and new ideas. So it's definitely a good opportunity to start getting people involved. And another example, Dario had touched on it briefly, Blockwatch. So I think it's probably safe to say across the island there have certainly been upticks in crime and in theft. And so in Victoria, it's been particularly bad, certainly over the course of the, I shouldn't say bad, but there's been an uptick in thefts and security breaches. And one of the great programs that a strata corporation and community can engage in is Block Watch. Block Watch brings police, community, and communities together in their common goal of community safety and in inclusive community-based programs that connect people, build relationships, and create a strong sense of community. It seemed silly not to mention Block Watch because it fits so beautifully within this topic. And as I said, security is top of mind for so many of our strata communities that it's a great example that could be fairly easy to implement in a strata corporation. And again, Dario had mentioned welcoming new residents. So we do have a welcome package that we send out to new owners, recognizing that owners are not the only residents that move into your strata corporation. I think, in my opinion, that the best approach to welcoming new residents to a new community or a new strata corporation is going beyond that Proline welcome package and developing a welcome package or letter that really is tailored specifically to your community. It can provide some information about how the strata corporation operates and governs the property, but ultimately it will probably look a little bit different from the welcome package that Proline sends out in that it's going to have more key information on how you actually live within your property and how to become a part of the community, so that you can bring those new residents into the fold. Not only can you share ins and outs of your property, for example, if you've got a garbage room, it's helpful for new residents to know where it is. It may be helpful too to understand what the schedule is for pickups so that I know if I'm living in a condo building that I'd like to take my garbage down probably after the bin is emptied so that it's not overflowing and I don't have to take it back up. Sharing that information, I think, is really important, but it really makes new residents feel warm and like they've come to an existing community. You can also provide some key contact information. A lot of the time, people who are moving to strata corporations may never actually lived in a strata before. So they may not understand that there is a strata council, or that there is a Proline strata property manager that's available. So providing those kind of key contacts and the context to which you would contact those people, I think is really a great way to welcome a new resident to your community. We continue to see participation on the strata council level dwindle, as I mentioned, in some communities, not all. Some communities are thriving with their volunteers on their strata council, which is fantastic. But for those that maybe are seeing the participation dwindle a bit, involving new owners right from the hop in a warm, friendly way, introducing them to the community is also a great way to kind of get in their ear and maybe see if they're interested in joining the strata council at some point in the future. Okay, so we've talked about some very specific examples, and there are so many more. So I would invite you all, if you have ideas, pop them in the chat and we can read them out loud. We might do that maybe at the question and answer period. So pop your ideas in the chat. We will get to them at the question and answer period and just go through all of the ideas and read them off so that we can share them with each of you. All right, Dario, back to you.
Okay. I think we have a poll now, if that's correct. Is there one? I can't see if it's happening or not. Here we go. All right. So yeah, thinking about where and how you can hold these events, what amenities does your building have? You check off as many as you like, or as many as you have. You could aspirationally check off the ones that you wish you had.
People are still participating, so I'll close it off after I see it taper off.
Great.
And sorry, I was working on the poll, but I couldn't unmute myself and find the poll at the same time.
Now you need a third arm.
I do.
There was someone in the chat who said that they're interested in starting a green team, finding ways to make the building greener. So any of the existing ones we can learn from. We'll talk about resources of where to learn and get examples from near the very end. But yeah, I think that's a great thing to do. Just kind of a team of people who constantly looks at ways that little things like that can be improved. Recycling and bottle collecting and that kind of stuff. Bottle collecting is a super common committee that I have experienced.
Okay, I think we have most people, so I'm going to end the poll
We've got
here.
someone here saying that they have a hot tub, which is an extremely great way to get people socializing. I would socialize with my neighbors every day if I had a hot tub and dry sauna. Someone noted that they had an exchange. They said a jewelry exchange. You could also do like a clothing swap and donate the remaining items. And again, like that's something you can do easily in someone's unit, in the lobby. That's great.
That's a fantastic idea.
Yeah. Okay, so most people have a bulletin board. That's great. Yeah, not, about half people have a lobby and a third of people have a guest suite and amenity room. So if you live in a bigger building or maybe a big townhouse complex, those can be common. And about half people again have lawn space, and hopefully maybe if you don't have the big lobby, you've got some lawn space. As Christy said, like I wouldn't have ever thought to have a event in a parkade, but with some planning, it's easily doable. Some people say that they've got a common road. You've probably got a little bit of road space, maybe even visitor parking space that you're not thinking of that can be booked for just a day or again, just a few hours, you know? And for those, 30% say you have a neighborhood park or community center. I'm not going to say that 70% of you are incorrect, but I would say to take a quick look around. There might be spaces that you are not aware of. Maybe if they're not, a block away, maybe they're a couple blocks away. You can do a little carpool, maybe a 10-minute walk. Or again, speaking of walking, again, I mentioned a walking group earlier, or a coffee shop. Again, it doesn't have to be big enough to accommodate everyone in the building. It can just be enough to get 3 people together for a coffee date or 3 people doing a walk around the neighborhood. Those are all great events that can just get people out and talking. Someone here just said that they had a Valentine's potluck dinner. That's amazing. I love potluck dinners are great. Again, if you were, I didn't mention, except for a second ago, letting people into your unit, because, it can be, let's face it, intimidating to literally open your door. But again, you don't have to open your door. I'm going to redeem myself. You don't have to open your door to all 100 other people in your big building. Maybe open your door to a small group of people, have people over for dinner, a potluck, have people sign up in advance so you know how many people are coming. If you're comfortable allowing your people into your unit, or, a floor party. I used to do those in college, like everyone on the same floor or like in the same group of units would all open our doors. Someone said that they have a billiards room and a ping pong room. You're on easy mode for this. All right, let's go. So yeah, just all which is just to say, if you think about your building, I bet you can find a space, even if you might not at first glance have a lobby or an amenity room. There is some space either in your building or around your building that you can hold an event. Again, that might not be obvious at first. If someone told me we were holding something in the parkade before today, I would think that they were crazy. But seeing those pictures that Christy just showed, is making me rethink how buildings I work with can use their parkates for sure. All right, let's go on to the next one here. So how do you get started with all this stuff? Well, that is just it. You get started. Someone has to do it. If everyone's waiting for someone else to make the first move, you're going to miss out on so many great opportunities. So let's talk about what it means to start something here from scratch and get an idea off the ground. And on the next slide, many social groups are formed around a banner bearer. So one or a few organizers who are the cheerleaders. These are the event planners, the people confirming the details, printing the posters. They're the people making sure everyone gets an invitation. The people saying, I'll see you for that thing tomorrow, right? When you pass a neighbor in the hallway. A little can go a long way. And one of the biggest things that gets people out of their units and participating is simply being invited. The main thing required in the role of a community ambassador is just to be the person responsible for ensuring things keep moving. You don't have to do all the work. You shouldn't do all the work yourself, usually. But someone to encourage everyone else to keep going, to keep track of all the little tasks to make sure everyone's moving forward. And again, to just be that person to walk up to a neighbor or just smile as you pass a neighbor in the hallway and say like, hey, do you want to do this thing with me? Seems simple, but that can have the biggest impact. Now, these people can be council members, but really any resident can fill this role. It's a great opportunity for someone who wants to contribute to the community without being on council. And it can be and often is a shared position. Sometimes you'll have a committee of ambassadors, each with a delegated responsibility. Every little bit that someone can contribute helps. And sometimes the planning itself becomes a community building social event. If you spend weeks planning something with other people, then that itself is you connecting with your neighbors. Don't be afraid, though, to be the first person to stand up and get something started. Everything has to start somewhere, and you don't have to have it all figured out before you start. You can just say, this is a thing that I would like to do. And maybe other people will help you. Hopefully they do. Maybe they won't at first, but you will figure it out as you go. But you just got to take that first step. Community ambassadors should be reliable. You should be dedicated to good communication with your neighbors, because communication is what it's all about. You should be fair-minded. Remember that you're doing this for the community, not for your own personal benefit. Traditionally, you'll also hear words like warm and friendly, and that's all true. I just want to note, as an introverted person myself, you don't need to be a hyper-energetic party person to be a community ambassador. You just need to be someone motivated to make someone happen, someone who's motivated to become better friends with your neighbors, or at least better acquaintances, or at least better neighbors with your neighbors. So we've identified the who and the why, but still the question, what does an ambassador actually do? First, I would suggest taking your idea to council. This is not about the Strata Council gatekeeping all social activities, but it's just about council providing a central point of communication for everyone. Maybe someone else has already also reached out to council about wanting to do a social event. Council can connect you with that other person. You might not have known that there was someone else also working on trying to do something like this. Maybe the Strata Council can provide you resources. For example, council can give you permission to hang up signs around the Strata. Council could help you email things out through the Strata's website. Council might even be able to give you monetary support for your event. So approaching council saying, hey, this is what I would like to do, is a great first step. And as discussed before, there's a positive feedback loop where these events lead to community building experiences. They help people get more comfortable with each other, which means everyone feels a little bit more comfortable at annual general meetings or when bylaw issues come up. It makes those difficult neighbor-to-neighbor situations a little less awkward, and it makes it a lot easier to work collaboratively to resolve problems, and it makes it easier to plan other community building activities in the future. It's really the pebble that starts the avalanche. All of this stuff gets easier if the more community building events and systems that you have in your strata, and it just has to start small. So to emphasize again on the next slide, community isn't necessarily built with one big flashy event. You don't need to get 70 people together for a big party in a community center with food and music and dancing. You just need two neighbors to connect with each other to count as a community building event. And it doesn't even have to be in person. Again, there are passive examples of this, like two neighbors both agreeing to decorate their doors for Halloween can be a community building event. Again, a welcome committee, someone to show new residents about the building, going door to door to sign a card celebrating your neighbor's new baby, that builds community. Going for coffee with a neighbor builds community. All these things build, again, if you're trying to think of a big event, everyone kind of knowing each other from a lot of these small little events will really help with that. And again, the small events themselves are community building. It's not just the big stuff. And you also want to think about, as Christy mentioned earlier, is the scale of the event something that can be taken on by the next person? If you single-handedly plan a huge party, that can be a really fun time. It can get everyone together. It can be a huge benefit to your community. But then if you decide not to throw the party again next year, chances are it's not going to happen because it was all you last time and everyone is just waiting for you to do it again. A small group of people that creates a sustainable series of small events, like a weekly coffee date, can actually make a bigger long-term impact on building community than one single big event. Consider what would happen if you started an event and then moved out of the strata. Imagine if there was other residents that you had been working with that you had inspired to become community ambassadors themselves. Maybe you planned the first event. On the second or third event, you got some help. Imagine you moved out and those people who had kind of were helping you now were the leaders. And imagine if you found out a year or two after moving out of the strata that those events that you had started were still ongoing even after you had left. That would be the mark of a successful community building project. And remember, these events should be fun. This isn't supposed to be a bunch of extra work for you. It's supposed to be a fun way to spend time with your neighbors. Even the planning, again, can be a fun community experience. Now, some of the things that we've discussed today can be done without spending any money, simple social events or walking groups, or it can be done with residents spending their own money for decorating or coffee dates. But some events, like the bigger ones, do benefit from having a bit of funding, and there are several ways to do that. The most obvious that some people might not think of, though, is to have a small line item in your operating budget for social events, approved by owners at the annual general meeting. Essentially agreeing by a majority vote that owners will contribute 50 cents or $1 a month from their strata fees into a fund for community events. Other things can be more self-funding. If your strata has income from returnables like bottle depot returns, or residents pay a small entry fee or by donation, you can have expenses with that. Sometimes this money goes into the strata's bank account. Sometimes it's kept in cash. It is usually best to have this funding go through council in some way, such as into the strata's bank account, because this allows the money to be tracked, which ensures accountability. And again, it's easier transition of funding between different organizers. You don't want to be moving out and discover you have $1,000 in cash in the back. Well, actually, maybe you do want to find $1,000 in cash in the back of your closet that you had collected from your neighbors for an event. But ideally, you don't. Ideally, that money is kept centrally somewhere with the community planning committee or the council to be used by community ambassadors. Now, while these initiatives can be led by non-council residents, it's often important to either have a council member directly involved in any committees or to have a strong relationship with council. Again, this is about communication. Communication is key. It won't be helpful for you to find that you've planned a social event at the same time that council's planned an earthquake drill, unless your social event involves sitting under tables for long periods of time. Anything that involves spending strata funds or altering the common property, like putting up decorations or gardening committees, those need strata approval. And again, your strata council can centralize communication to ensure that everyone is on the same page, which again is part of the whole point of community building. And again, have a succession plan. Welcome other people to join you in the planning committee. If you see someone at an event who's really engaged, invite them to help you plan the next event. It's not about your accomplishments personally. It's about the ability of the community to function and build upon itself, and for these small events to lead to other events in the future. So remember, it's okay and even recommended to start small. Small events can have a huge impact. Doesn't have to be an event in terms of everyone being at one place at one time. It can be something passive, something small over a long period of time. Anything easy and enjoyable will help. Get other people involved. The more people who are involved, the greater a variety of strength and skills and resources you have, and the more of a community event it becomes. And communicate, communicate, communicate. Communicate with your council, communicate with your neighbors, even the neighbors who live so far at the other end of the strata you don't recognize them. A simple hello builds community. Catherine and I were just talking about this morning. Smiling and saying hello to your neighbor as you walk past them will help build community. It's as simple as that. And hello, have you heard about this event that's coming up? That can turn someone you've never met into someone that you end up spending a lot of time with at a lot of different social events. Resources for reading further. The Hey Neighbor Collective has resources and ideas for taking the next steps and what you can actually tangibly do to start building a community. If you're still thinking to yourself, okay, but what do I actually do? I need some ideas. You can try checking out Hey Neighbor. You can also find resources for CHOA and VISOA. They have guidance on how community events within the framework of the Strata Property Act and Strata specifically. And there's a host of other resources available. Blockwatch BC and FireSmart can help you with community safety planning. Let's Talk for research on how community actually improves our lives, including some of the statistics Christy was giving earlier. Things like the Senior Services Society that gives you local resources that already exist in your community. Again, your community event can be jumping on with someone that's already ongoing, but now you're just getting yourself and your neighbors involved in an already ongoing event. That's great. There's so much that's just an internet search away. There are dozens and dozens of ways to take the next step in building a community. So many different ways. I know people often want specifics in these presentations, but there's too many examples of things that you could do for us to would be here for hours if we were listing all of them. Again, the most important thing isn't actually knowing what to do or how to do it. You can figure it all out as you go. The most important thing is to just take that first step and decide you want to do something and to try to get other neighbors involved in doing it with you. And after you've done that, the next important step is just to take the next step. And you'll then take the next step after that, and you'll have a community event going before you've even realized what's happened. So thanks everyone for your time. Thanks for being here. And now we will move on to our Q&A.
That photo always makes me giggle. They out there often say that the hardest step is always the first. And it can be also the most fun. So we do have a couple of questions. Charlotte says security in the building can restrict spontaneity. Totally true. Who decides on restrictions? The restriction to limit individuals to their own floor. So I think, Charlotte, I know who you are. I know what property you're at. And I understand you're in a condo style building, likely with the elevators locked off so that when you get on the elevator will only allow you to go to your floor. Absolutely, it can potentially restrict spontaneity. And the restriction on security systems and security programs like that is ultimately generally formed by bylaws of the Strata Corporation or a decision of the Strata Council. It may have also been set up that way originally by the developer, but if your Strata Corporation does do that and you're interested in having a discussion with council around whether or not that's necessary and how to kind of circumvent that to ensure that you are able to encourage those spontaneous interactions, I would put a note into your Strata Council. Charlotte also says that having a concierge takes the role of intermediary between events committee and strata, and the role is key to managing activities in your building and in her building, which is absolutely true. If you do have the benefit of any concierge or building manager that takes on kind of that role, it is extremely helpful. In particular, in this community, the concierge, Dwayne, is incredible and definitely helps to bolster and reinforce that community. So sorry, Dario, I just dove right in there and answered the two questions and comments that we had, and we don't have
No, that's
anything
great.
else.
I'll just note quickly a couple other ideas people shared. One was allowing artists in the community to put their art in the strata. That's super cool. I've not heard of that before. I know a lot of restaurants do that. I've not heard of a strata do that. That's really interesting. Another really simple one was well, door prizes at events. Good way to get people to the events. Name tags, super obvious but helpful. Give everyone a name tag, let them put their name on it. Makes introducing yourselves and getting to know each other super easier. I always, when someone tells me their name, I think I'm like the majority of people. When someone tells me their name, it just falls out the other side of my head immediately. So name tags, super helpful. um,
We do have a question.
yeah.
Being prepared for a fire alarm, what do I or we need to have in a bag right at the door so that we can get out quickly? I think, Jane, that's going to depend on who you are and who's with you. I know for me, I've got a 4-year-old. My bag would be full of toys and clothes and all kinds of weird things, whereas you may have very different items. We certainly are not experts in emergency preparedness, but that would be an awesome thing to research and share with your strata council if it's something that you're passionate about. And you could potentially take the lead on helping your strata community to be as prepared as possible in the event of an emergency. I don't know if Dario, you have anything to add on that?
No, just yeah, like you said, we're not the experts on this, but the government of BC has a lot of resources on, making earthquake kits, making go bags for exactly this kind of situation. So yeah, exactly. Get that information and then tell your council that you want to do an information session to help others learn. I know too, like you can, not on maybe this specifically, but I've had strategies get a member of the fire department in to do information sessions, or a member of the police to do information sessions. And that can be a community event. Everyone gets together and has half an hour to ask questions of a fire marshal about how to be planning for an emergency or to evacuate the building in case of a fire.
There was a further question on that. We have a dog and we're not always at home. What should we do to protect our dog in the event of a fire? Honestly, the best approach, in my opinion, is get to know your neighbors, make friends, build that community, even if it's the small community of the units on your floor, but get to know the people around you so that you can look out for one another in all kinds of different circumstances. Maybe you've got a neighbor that is home at opposite times that you're home, and you can provide them with an emergency key. If you are providing a neighbor with an emergency key, I would suggest letting your strata council know so that we can note that in the records in the event that we can't reach you and there is an emergency. There was also a chat comment that said door hangers that say pet in home. That could potentially constitute a bylaw issue within some strata corporations. It's a good suggestion, but before you hang anything on your door, I would probably check with the bylaws and the council first. And I think that does it for questions. We are nearing 1 o'clock, and so I'm going to hand it back over to Catherine, who's going to kind of conclude our session for today.
Great. Thank you. I'm just sorting out every screen that I have available here. So give me a second. I just wanted to say thanks to everybody for attending and all the great participation and questions. As promised, we did pick a winner for the surprise prize. The winner is Joshua. So Joshua, I'm going to reach out directly to you to learn more about you and see what local business you'd like to support. Thanks again to everybody for participating. As mentioned, just a couple tiny little things to wrap up. We did record the session, and we'll be sending a link out to the recording in the coming week. Feel free to share the link with others who you think would also be interested. We'll be posting the recording on our YouTube channel, so you can always find it and past sessions there. And as mentioned, if you have any questions or comments, please complete the survey at the end of the session or reach out to me directly. We're always working on new things, and we share that information in our newsletter, which comes out quarterly. So you can find those things there. Thanks again for joining us, and have a wonderful rest of your day.